Hi everybody, it's Tatiana and this is Bedrock Faith by Eric Charles May. This was the read-along book selected by Dee at Brown Girl Reading for hashtag ReadSoLit this February 2017. This follows the story of a cast of characters in a neighborhood called Parkland set in Chicago, and the story begins with the return of a resident who was arrested as a teenager. He is let out on parole, and his nickname is Stewpot. And when he comes back to the neighborhood, things kind of go out of control. His interactions with the neighbors become more and more adversarial as the story goes along. There's one neighbor that he takes a shining to, and interactions with him become a problem for not just her, but also some of the other residents in the neighborhood. This reminded me of a lot of sitcoms from back in the day, like 227, although there aren't apartments, but 227 and the nosy neighbor that the Wayans sister played on In Living Color. Don't you be talking about Miss Jenkins. That character. And just a lot of the sitcoms and things from back in the day that were set in the black neighborhood. That's what this did a lot of reminding me of, on top of the things that took place in relationship to Stewpot and in relationship to the neighbors interacting with each other. This is really a fly-on-the-wall kind of story. You get perspectives from many of the cast of characters, and there are a lot of characters in the story, but you don't have a problem following any of them. But it's fly on the wall because you get their perspectives, but their perspectives are shared in third person, and then you also get perspectives from other people in like the shops. There's a hair salon and there's a grocery store, and the gossip, the gossip trail that takes place in this book is its own character, and that just, it moves you from one section of the story to another so quickly, and the chapters are so short. It's like and that's I think that's supposed to be a parallel too with what happens in the story, but the story is split into books which are split into chapters, and the chapters, I think maybe the longest chapter is 5 or 6 pages, and so when you see how short the chapters are and that it's moving as well as it is, it encourages you to keep reading. Those of us who read a lot know that short chapters are the way to go, and this book has it. All of these characters are not presented in a favorable light. They are presented to you as they are, flaws and the things that other people don't like about them, and then you are left with the opportunity to make your own decisions about who you think, the type of person that you think these characters are. And I really like that as well. Like, you're not spoon-fed how you're supposed to feel about these characters. You're told about, for instance, Mrs. Motley, and I have a problem saying Mrs., so everybody in this story except for one character is Mrs., but as I'm talking about them, I might say Miss because I have a problem saying Mrs. So, anyway, you have Mrs. Motley, for instance, and you're told about her, how her best friend thinks about her, as well as how Miss Butler thinks about her, and Miss Butler can't stand her, but her best friend loves her. And you're given these things about her as well as what Mrs. Motley thinks about herself, and from that point the story progresses and you see her interaction with the characters in the story, Stewpot and the other members in the community, and then you get some of her reflections, some of her fears, and based on all of that together, you're allowed to create your own opinion of who she is or what you think about her. And that's how it is with the majority of the characters in the novel. And then of all of the things that take a part in the makeup of this neighborhood, you have the introduction before the story begins of the Parkland neighborhood, and that actually reminded me of The Bottom being explained at the start of Sula by Toni Morrison. But you have this introduction of Parkland and how it came to be, and how it came to be predominantly black to all black, and why the black members in this community are so attached to it and don't want to leave as the story progresses, in spite of how difficult things become with Stu Potts' return to the neighborhood. Stu Pot as a character, as the story progresses and the people continue to try to figure out how to deal with him, your opinion of Stu Pot continues to, like, at one point you think it's going to go this direction, and nope, it completely goes over there. Definitely pick this up. This is just something that you will enjoy reading, and then once you finish reading it, you will want to read it again. There are so many characters in here that are like people that we know. Like, I'm reading this and I'm thinking, I'm in my head picturing the neighborhood, and I can see like my grandmother's neighborhood, and picturing and thinking about the interactions between the people who lived in my grandmother's neighborhood when I was growing up. And most of the people who lived in my grandmother's neighborhood were relatives of mine on both sides of my family. So thinking about all of that and putting these characters in that setting, and then how they related to one another and how they worked to keep their community together, and how they dealt with things that tried to pull the community apart. This is written so well and so smoothly, and all of the things weave together. There's a part at the end of the story where Mrs. Motley is reflecting, and some of the things that are said in her reflections, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like, this is kind of gold. And to get nothing else out of this, seriously, to get to the last 8 pages of this novel, it's worth it to read the entire novel, to see how things get to where they are at those last 8 pages of the novel, when there's all of this reflection going on, and then the story ends and I wanted more. I thoroughly enjoyed this. This is definitely a novel that once you get into it, it's going to be difficult to get out of. These are characters that will stick with you even after you finish reading the novel. I am very interested to read more by this author. I'd never heard of this author before. I don't know how Dee Dee found out about this book. After all of that rambling, I hope, as I say in every review, I hope some of this made sense to you. If you got nothing else from this, definitely pick this book up. I was going to wait until after the live show to do the review, but the live show is going to be rife with spoilers, and so I kind of want to get this out beforehand, so that if you have questions about whether or not you want to pick this book up. I know some people are having a hard time getting their hands on it. It was available on ThriftBooks for like $4 or $7. It's not anymore on ThriftBooks. The only copies that they have are like $15.50. It is available on Kindle for $10 if you're not able to get it from your library. I would definitely suggest picking this up. That's why I'm uploading this review earlier than I initially intended, because if you haven't read this or you have doubts about reading it, I want you to get the opportunity to hear this review and think again about whether or not you want to read it and get it read before the live show happens. But that's all. I'm going to stop. That's all I'm going to say. I will probably end up buying this book so that I can reread it and tab it, because I liked it that much. So that's all that I'm going to say. I think that's the second time I've said that. Thank you all for watching. If you like this review, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more from my channel, hit that subscribe button. And I hope you have a good week, weekend, whenever you see this video. Peace out.